Ladies and gentlemen, life doesn't slow down for your pain. It doesn't ask how you're feeling or whether you're ready. It won't pause for your heartbreak, your disappointment, or your frustration. Life will come at you hard, fast, and without warning. It'll feel like a storm hitting you from all directions. And in that moment, when the wind is howling and the skies go dark, you have a decision to make. Will you let your emotions take the lead, or will you stand firm on what you know to be true? Everyone wants to win. Everyone wants success, legacy, peace, and inner strength. But very few are willing to do the quiet, unseen work it actually takes to build those things. The kind of work that doesn't get likes or applause, the kind that doesn't show up on your resume. That's the inner work. That's the work of discipline, focus, resilience. That's the mind work. Because here's a truth you need to hold on to. You will only rise as high as the strength of your mind. You can only win consistently when your mindset is more powerful than your emotions. Let's talk about what that really means. Let's break it down into something real. 5 truths, 5 keys to unlock the warrior in your mind. You feel angry? That's normal. That's human. But if you let that anger make your decisions, if you quit in the heat of that emotion, you don't just lose the moment. You risk losing your future. I've seen it too many times. People throwing away years of hard work, relationships, opportunities, progress, all over a 5-minute feeling, a single conversation, a glance, a sentence. You ever watch someone storm out of a meeting, slam a door, send a message they can't unsend? And all for what? A bruised ego, a word that hit too deep, a feeling they didn't stop to examine. That's what happens when emotion takes the wheel. When you hand the keys of your life over to a storm that was never meant to drive. But the real tragedy isn't that the feeling came. It's that the mind didn't step in. Your emotions are short-term thinkers. They want comfort, release, relief. They're trying to protect you in the now. But your mind is the long game strategist. It knows your vision. It remembers your goals, your values, your family, your purpose. And that's the difference between reaction and response. Reaction is what emotion does. Response is what discipline does. And that difference right there can shape the entire trajectory of your life. Let me tell you about a woman I met named Nadia, young sister from Chicago, sharp, driven, the kind of person who goes the extra mile without being asked. She worked her way up from intern to lead engineer. First one in, last one out, always showing up for others. Then the promotion list comes out. Her name's not there, not even a mention. And in that moment, her heart sank. She felt invisible, like all the sacrifices, all the extra hours meant nothing. She told me she sat in her car and cried. Not just a few tears, not just for a few minutes, but for 2 full hours. She was humiliated, confused, angry. Her hands were shaking, and the first thought that hit her mind was, I'm done. I gave everything, and they still didn't see me. Right there, she stood at a crossroads. She could have let that emotion dictate her next move. She could have let her heartbreak write her resignation. But she didn't. She allowed herself to feel it. Fully. She honored the pain, but she didn't let it lead. That same night, instead of quitting, she opened her laptop and started researching leadership training. Started reflecting on what skills she could still grow, what blind spots she hadn't seen. Less than a week later, she invested in an executive development course, her own money, no guarantees, just a decision to take back the wheel. 6 months later, she led one of the company's biggest launches. A year after that, she became a vice president. Same company, same building, just a different mindset. That is what separates the emotional from the intentional, the reactive from the resilient. And if you want to reach your next level, that's the kind of strength you'll need to build. Not the kind you shout about. The kind that shows up when the storm does. The kind that keeps your hands steady when the world tries to shake you. Because you will feel things deeply, but you don't have to live your life based on what you feel in a moment. You can lead it based on what you know to be true. That's how you win. That's how you grow. That's how you build a legacy that no emotion can tear down. The only difference was that this time, Her mind was in control. That's what changed everything. People get it twisted and start believing that strength means not feeling anything, that power comes from being numb. But that's not true. Real strength is when you feel it all, the heartbreak, the anger, the confusion, and still choose wisdom, still choose direction, still choose the mission. Because the mission doesn't pause just because your emotions are flaring up. Life doesn't stop moving so you can process your pain. Opportunities don't freeze while you gather yourself. Doors are opening and closing while you sit inside your emotions. I'm not telling you not to feel. Feelings are part of being human. But don't let those feelings take the driver's seat. Don't let a passing emotion take control of a permanent decision. I once watched a young man, a high school senior, incredibly gifted, with a full scholarship waiting for him at one of the top universities in the country. He had everything laid out in front of him. One argument with his coach, one moment of pride, and he walked off the team. Not because he didn't have talent, not because he wasn't meant for greatness, but because in that moment, his pride spoke louder than his purpose. Years later, I asked him if he regretted that decision. He didn't say a word, just lowered his eyes. That silence was louder than any answer. Decisions made in emotional storms are almost always made in error. It's like trying to build a house while the ground is shaking. You can't do it. You wait. You let the shaking pass, let the foundation settle, and then you build. Life works the same way. If you try to build decisions while your emotions are unstable, you'll end up with something fragile, something that can't last. You need to let the ground of your mind settle before you choose your next move. And this has nothing to do with being cold. It has everything to do with being clear, with knowing that one impulsive act can cost you more than you're ready to lose. Think about the text you send in anger, the job you quit out of pride, the person you cut off in a storm of fear, the relationship you torch because your feelings caught fire. And when the smoke clears, when the adrenaline fades, you're left staring at the ashes, wishing you could undo what's already done. That's the price of acting from emotion. So the next time that surge hits you, pause, breathe, think. Ask yourself one question. Is this a moment or is this a mission? Because a moment will fade, but a mission, if honored, will carry you forward. Let your mind lead, and your life will follow in the direction of purpose, not pain. And if we're being real, we've all had mornings where we don't want to get up. Days where the weight feels unbearable. You don't want to move, don't want to talk, don't want to face the world. Your mind is foggy, your body feels heavy, and your spirit just wants to hide. That's real. But the ones who rise, the ones who build something lasting, they don't let that feeling win. They do it anyway. That's the difference. Discipline is the bridge between intention and action. Motivation might get you started, but motivation is unreliable. It's weather dependent. It likes comfort. It shows up when things are easy, when energy is high, when the sun's out and the path looks smooth. But discipline shows up when it's hard. Discipline gets out of bed when the comforter begs you to stay. Discipline answers the alarm at 5 in the morning when your body is begging for more sleep. It says, no, we've got work to do. It turns off distractions, cuts the noise, and focuses on what must be done, not what feels good in the moment. And make no mistake, this isn't about becoming cold or mechanical. It's about owning your power. It's about choosing self-respect over temporary relief. It's about understanding that the life you want, the peace you crave, the legacy you dream of, all of it depends on what you do when nobody's watching. Not when the spotlight is on, not when the rewards are immediate, but in the silence, in the grind, in the small, daily choices. That's where strength is built. That's where greatness is formed, not in the moments of applause, but in the moments of repetition. Choosing what moves you forward over what numbs the pain. You think Serena Williams woke up every day excited to train until her body ached? You think she looked forward to the drills, to the pain, to the pressure? No. She chose to respect the process more than she respected her emotions. That's what made her a champion. She didn't win because she felt like it every day. She won because she made habits stronger than her moods, because she honored the mission even when her motivation went missing. That's the difference between people who talk about winning and people who actually win. One group waits to feel right. The other shows up and does what's right, no matter what. I once knew a young man, bright as the morning, full of ideas and fire, told me he wanted to be a writer. Said he had stories inside him that could change the world, move hearts, maybe even shift someone's entire direction in life. I looked him in the eye and said, "Then write." He paused and said, "I'm waiting for inspiration." I told him straight, "You'll be waiting a long time. Inspiration is unreliable. It might visit once a week, maybe once a month. But discipline? Discipline is outside your door every morning at 6 o'clock, knocking, ready to go. And if you start opening that door, if you welcome discipline into your life, you'll notice inspiration starts showing up a whole lot more often. That's the truth people don't want to hear, because we've built a world that worships ease. We chase what feels good. We're taught to follow our feelings, to move only when it feels right. But let me tell you, feelings lie. Discipline doesn't. Emotions will trick you into believing you're stuck when all you need to do is take one more step. Emotions will try to convince you to quit halfway through the climb, even though the summit is right around the bend. Discipline whispers, "Keep moving. We're not done yet." And here's the thing about discipline. It's not some rare gift reserved for a few. It's not something you're born with. It's something you build, like a muscle. You don't start by lifting a mountain. You start by doing one hard thing today, then another tomorrow, then another, and over time it becomes a part of you, not something you perform, something you are. You're no longer someone who waits to feel ready. You're someone who shows up ready because you've prepared, you've trained, you've earned your consistency. I had a woman come up to me once and say, "I wish I had your discipline." I looked her in the eyes and said, "You don't need mine. You need to stop letting your emotions have the final say, because deep down you already know what needs to be done. The problem is, your feelings keep voting against it. And every time you let those feelings win, you silence the strongest part of you. The part that was born to lead, the part that was built to rise, the part that was made to endure. So the next time you don't feel like doing it, whatever it is, stop. Breathe. Remind yourself that every great life, every legacy that matters, was built by someone who did what had to be done, even when it was the last thing they wanted to do. Because success does not belong to the emotional. It belongs to the disciplined. Discipline is your way through the chaos. It's your anchor in the storm. It's the voice inside that says, "I don't feel like it, but I'm doing it anyway." You can have all the talent in the world. You can be the most intelligent person in the room. You can ace every test, memorize every statistic, quote every book. But if you can't manage yourself, if you can't manage your words, your reactions, your ego, then all that intelligence becomes noise, just noise. Because while intelligence might open the door, emotional intelligence is what keeps you in the room. That's the part people don't always understand. You don't rise because you know the most. You rise because you know yourself the best. You've mastered your emotions. You've trained yourself to respond instead of react. I can't tell you how many brilliant minds I've seen passed over. Not because they weren't smart, not because they didn't have the qualifications, but because they couldn't control their tempers. Because every disagreement turned into a battle. Because every bit of feedback became a personal attack. Because they couldn't read the room, couldn't feel the energy, couldn't pause long enough to listen. And instead of learning from it, they blamed everyone else. Talked about how unfair the system was, how no one understood them. But the truth was simple. They were geniuses with no grip on their emotions. And that's dangerous. That's like handing a toddler the keys to a race car. The potential is there, but so is the wreckage if they don't learn control. Emotional intelligence is quiet strength. It's the kind of power that doesn't need to raise its voice. It shows up when the pressure's high, when the stakes are real, when the crowd is watching, and it keeps you centered. It's the deep breath you take when all you want to do is lash out. It's the silence you choose when someone tries to pull you into the mud. It's knowing how to hold your ground without making noise. That's not weakness, that's mastery. You ever been around someone who just felt grounded? Someone who didn't have to prove anything, didn't react to every jab, didn't need the last word? They just sat there calm, fully present, listening. And when they finally spoke, everyone paid attention. Not because they were the loudest, but because their presence carried weight. That calm you felt, that stillness in their energy, that wasn't luck, that was earned. That came from knowing who they are, from learning to anchor themselves in something deeper than ego. They didn't let the chaos around them decide the peace within them. And that's the goal. You want to be great? You want to build something that lasts? Then don't chase feelings. Build discipline. Master your emotions. Respect the process. And become the kind of person who shows up no matter what. Because when discipline leads, life follows every time. Let me slow this down and break it open, because this part matters. Emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending you don't feel. It's about knowing the difference between what belongs to you and what doesn't. You walk into work and someone throws you an attitude. They're short with you, cold, maybe even rude. Your first instinct might be to snap back, to match their energy, to defend yourself. But emotional intelligence reminds you it's not about you. That attitude they're carrying, that energy they're projecting, it's theirs. Maybe they had a rough morning. Maybe something's going on at home. Maybe they're just not in a place where they've learned to manage themselves yet. Your responsibility isn't to absorb their chaos, it's to protect your peace. And when you really get that, when you stop being a sponge for other people's moods, that's when your life begins to level up. This isn't just a feel-good idea. It's backed by data. Harvard Business Review ran a study. Not speculation, not theory, but hard numbers. They found that 90% of top performers, not average employees, not middle-of-the-pack workers, but top-tier, consistent achievers, all had one thing in common: high emotional intelligence. It wasn't about the highest IQ. It wasn't about who had the flashiest resume. It was about emotional mastery. These were the people who could lead under pressure, handle conflict with grace, stay composed when everything around them was falling apart. Not because they were emotionless, but because they knew how to pause. And in that pause, they chose their response. That pause, that moment of stillness before reacting, that's where true power lives. I once knew a man who ran a small business. Nothing huge, but it was his. He had built it from the ground up. He hired a young guy straight out of college, bright, full of potential, sharp mind, fresh ideas. This kid had everything you'd want on paper. But every time someone challenged his ideas, he snapped. Every time a customer had an issue, he took it personally. Feedback, he couldn't take it. Criticism, he folded or exploded. Within 6 months, he was gone. Not because he wasn't smart. He had all the talent in the world, but he didn't know how to handle people. He didn't know how to manage his ego. And that right there is the difference. Your talent might open the door, but if your emotions are unchecked, that same door will close behind you, and fast. Real strength, the kind that builds businesses, families, marriages, communities, that kind of strength comes from emotional clarity. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about being so aware of what you're feeling that you no longer let it control your decisions. You ever been in a conversation where the other person clearly isn't listening? They're just waiting for their turn to speak, eyes twitching, body tense. That's not emotional intelligence. That's insecurity dressed up in urgency. Real intelligence listens. It learns. It adapts. It doesn't need to dominate the room to be heard. You don't need to be the loudest person in the room. Stop chasing volume. Start chasing stillness. Because most of the time when people get loud, it's not because they're confident. It's because they're covering fear. When they get defensive, it's not because they're right. It's because they're hiding something inside they haven't dealt with. but the person who can stay calm when they're being challenged, who can remain centered while being disrespected, who can respond with grace when the heat is on, that's someone who's done the work. And let me be clear, calm isn't weakness. Calm is control. Calm is when you have power but choose not to wave it around. It's when you can say, I know exactly who I am and I don't need to prove it to you. That kind of presence, it shifts a room. That kind of energy, it's unforgettable. So yes, be intelligent. Master your craft. Study your field. But if you want to truly rise, you need to learn how to master yourself. Because real intelligence doesn't begin with books. It begins with self-awareness. Once you learn how to lead yourself, everything else begins to fall into place. And for some of you, I know this goes deeper. I can see it before you even speak. Some of you have walked through fire. You've carried weight most people will never understand. I see it in the way you carry your shoulders, in how cautious your words are, in how quickly your eyes shift when someone gets too close. You've learned to survive in silence. You've learned to perform while in pain. And somewhere along the line, you started to believe that pain was your identity. That the hurt, the betrayal, the trauma, that's who you are now. But hear me, and hear me well. Your pain is not your name. It's not your story. And it sure isn't your final chapter. Pain is real. It's sharp. It's loud. It stays longer than we want it to. But it is not your definition. It's a signal. It tells you where healing is needed. It reveals what matters to you. It helps you locate your boundaries, your values, your wounds. But it does not get to define who you are. That's your job. That's your mind's job. Every one of us has a story. Every one of us has been broken somewhere. Some of you were left behind. Some of you were abused, silenced, overlooked, underestimated. Some of you trusted people who were supposed to protect you and they betrayed that trust in the worst way. And that kind of pain, it digs deep, it makes you question everything. It convinces you that broken is permanent, that what happened to you is who you are. That's what emotion does. It screams, this is your truth now. This shame, this fear, this emptiness. This is who you'll always be. But that voice is lying, and the longer you let it speak unchallenged, the more it starts to sound like truth. The more you let it echo in your head, the more you start building your life around your wounds instead of your healing. And when you build from pain, you live in survival. But when you build from healing, you rise in strength. So today, decide what voice you're going to listen to. Choose what kind of life you're going to build. You don't owe your pain the rest of your life. You owe your future, your discipline. You owe your peace, your emotional clarity. You owe your purpose the strength to rise anyway. Let me tell you a story. A man sat alone in a prison cell, consumed by anger, drenched in shame, hardened by bitterness. He was lost. No clear direction. No purpose. Just a long trail of pain that had twisted itself into bad choices and broken paths. But then something shifted. He picked up a book, then another, and then another. And what happened next wasn't some miracle falling from the sky. It wasn't luck or magic. It was discipline. It was his mind stepping in to clean up the damage that emotion had left behind. That man was Malcolm X. He didn't erase his pain. He transformed it. He didn't run from the fire that had burned him. He learned to walk through it, head high, eyes clear. He didn't let the scars define him. He let them shape a purpose that changed the world. That's what happens when your mind takes the lead. Because when emotions run the show, you stay in survival mode. You build walls to protect, not bridges to connect. You react without thinking, lash out instead of responding. You hold on to pain because it's familiar, because it's been with you longer than healing has. But survival mode isn't life. It's a cage. And the lock isn't outside of you. It's in your mind. The moment you decide you're more than what happened to you, that's when things begin to shift. That's when you take your power back. You ever meet someone who's been through it, really been through it, and yet they're not bitter? They're wise. They're not angry. They're calm. That doesn't come easy. That didn't happen because the pain disappeared. It happened because they made a choice, a decision to say, yes, this hurt me, but it's not who I am. It's part of what I've been through, but I'm still standing. That's not weakness. That's leadership of self. That's what it means to be strong. And don't think for 1 second that strength means ignoring pain. That's not how it works. Real strength says, I feel it, I acknowledge it. I won't pretend it didn't happen. You say, yes, this broke something in me. Yes, it hurt deeply. But then you do something bold. You get up anyway, you keep walking. You show up to life even when you're bleeding on the inside. You build with shaky hands. You move forward with a trembling heart. And that isn't fake. That's real courage. That's what it looks like when your mind, not your emotion, writes the next page of your life. See, there's a lie floating around that pretending you're okay is strength. But strength isn't pretending. Strength is truth. Strength says, I'm not okay right now, but I'm still here. I'm tired, but I still believe there's more ahead of me. And there is. There's a life beyond the pain, beyond the trauma, beyond the letdowns. But you will only see it when you stop letting pain be the author of your story. So the next time the hurt speaks up and tries to convince you that you're not enough, that you're broken beyond repair, that you're too far gone to be healed, stop, breathe, and let your mind take over. Let it remind you of who you've become through every battle. Let it recall the nights you didn't quit, the days you kept going, the setbacks you endured and survived. That isn't failure. That's resilience. You are not the pain. You are the one who lived through it. That's your identity. Not the wound, but the warrior. Emotions will always whisper. They'll try to talk you out of your own growth. They'll say, take it easy. Slow down. Quit now. Figure it out later. They'll tempt you with comfort and quick relief. They live in 5-minute thinking. They want what feels good right now. But your mind, your disciplined, focused, purpose-driven mind, thinks in years. It's playing for legacy, not moments. And legacy isn't built in comfort. Legacy is built in the hard moments, the choices no one sees, the times when there's no applause, no praise, no audience, just you doing what needs to be done. I remember watching a bricklayer on a cold, gray morning. Rain was coming down soft but steady. His hands were rough, his face worn. But there he was, laying brick after brick. No rush, no complaints, just steady work. I asked him, why not wait until the rain clears? He looked up and said, because the house don't care about the weather. It only cares that I keep building. And that hit me deep, because life is like that. Your future is like that. Your legacy is like that. It doesn't care if you're tired or sad or scared or tempted to stop. It only remembers if you kept showing up, if you kept laying bricks. So whatever you're going through, whatever storm you're walking through, remember this: don't stop building. Don't stop moving. Let your emotions be present, but let your mind lead the way. That's how legacies are built. That's how lives are changed. One choice at a time, one brick at a time, one day at a time. Now let's be clear, emotions matter. They absolutely matter. They give us depth. They connect us to each other. They open the door to compassion, empathy, humanity. They bring color to the black and white of logic. But they're not the foundation you build your life on. Because emotions shift. They rise and fall like tides. One unexpected word, one off moment, one bad day. And suddenly, you're ready to walk away from everything you've worked for. You're ready to burn down your progress because the feeling changed. That's why your mind must lead. Because while your feelings respond to the now, your mind is thinking about the future. And the truth is, your feelings don't care about your future. But your mind does. Your feelings will whisper, skip the gym, you're tired, you've earned the rest. But your mind will remind you, you made a promise. Keep it. Not for today, but for who you're becoming. Your feelings will say, ignore that call. You're still mad. But your mind will say, make peace. Say what needs to be said while you still have the chance. Your emotions will scream, buy it now, you deserve it. But your mind will say, Save it. Invest it. Build something that your grandchildren will thank you for. That's the difference. Emotion chases comfort. The mind builds legacy. Emotion looks at today. The mind sees the long game. Think about the people you truly admire. Not the celebrities. I mean the real ones. The grandmother who raised 5 kids on her own and never complained. The teacher who stayed late, gave more than they were paid for, and left a mark on students' lives for decades. The father who grew up with nothing, but refused to pass that scarcity on to his children. These are people who didn't let emotion sit at the head of the table. They chose discipline when it would have been easier to disappear. They chose patience when pride would have felt better. They delayed gratification for something bigger than themselves. That's what legacy asks of you. It asks for sacrifice, for misunderstanding, for resilience in moments where comfort tries to steal your focus. Legacy is not about chasing a feeling, it's about chasing a future. That future might be financial freedom. It might be breaking a generational curse. It might be building a business that changes your community, writing a book that outlives you, raising children who know peace because you fought through the war. But whatever it is, it begins with one decision: to let your mind lead when your emotions beg to take control. Dr. Maya Angelou said, "We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated." That's not a quote for the fridge. That's a way of thinking. That's the mindset of someone who knows that setbacks don't define you unless you stop showing up. Struggle doesn't mean you're weak. Defeat only becomes permanent when you stop building. So when that moment comes, and it will, when the disappointment hits hard, when the results don't match the effort, don't hand the wheel to emotion, let your mind take over. Let it say, this is part of the process. We keep going, brick by brick, day by day, no shortcuts, no collapse. Because what you're building is more than a name. You're building a standard, you're building character. You're not chasing applause, you're creating impact. And when your time here ends, people won't remember every emotion you felt. They'll remember what you stood for. They'll remember what you built. That is legacy. And it starts in your mind. So let me leave you with this truth, and I want it to settle deep. You are not your fear. Let me say that again. Not for your ears, but for your spirit. You are not your fear. That trembling in your hands, that voice in your head whispering, what if I fail? What if they laugh? What if I'm not enough? That's not your truth. That's fear trying to drive the car. And fear is real. Yes, it is. But it's not the driver unless you hand it the keys. Unless you give it the steering wheel. Don't do that. Don't give it that kind of power. Fear will always show up. But it only gets a vote if you let it speak louder than your purpose. You are not your anger. I know some of you have been pushed beyond your limits. I know betrayal, injustice, abandonment. I know some of that rage didn't come from nowhere. It was earned through pain. It was fed by silence. And maybe you carry it around like armor, just under the surface, ready to explode. But that's not who you are. You are not your anger. You're not defined by the wounds others gave you. You're not defined by the injustice you've endured. You are defined by what you choose to do next. And that choice belongs to your mind, not your fury. You are not your sadness. I know some of you smile in public but cry in the dark. I know there's a quiet ache in your chest, the kind nobody sees, the kind that doesn't show up in conversations but stays with you like a shadow. Maybe you've been carrying it for so long you've mistaken it for identity. But listen closely. That weight, that sorrow, it's not all of you. It's something you've walked through. It's something you've survived. It's not the whole story, and it's not your name. You are the one who kept going. You are the one who's still standing. You are the one who built when you didn't feel like building, who showed up even when your heart was tired. That's who you are. That's your strength. Not the storm, but the survivor. Not the emotion, but the mind that kept you grounded. So lead with that. Live from that. Build from that. Because in the end, your legacy won't be built on what you felt. It will be built on what you did. You are the one strong enough to carry it. Let that settle for a moment. You are the one strong enough to carry it. Every weight, every wound, every whisper of doubt that tried to tell you otherwise, you are still breathing, still hoping, still standing. That isn't weakness, that's strength, quiet, steady, unshakable strength. You are not at the mercy of what you feel. You are the master of it. And I know that word, mastery, it can sound impossible. It can feel out of reach. But mastery doesn't mean you never feel. It means you feel fully and still choose powerfully. It means when fear tells you to run, you step forward anyway. When anger demands vengeance, you choose peace instead. When sorrow tries to close your eyes, you still lift your head and search for the light. Mastery doesn't erase emotion. It leads it. It lets the mind take the wheel and the heart ride alongside, not in control, but not silenced either. Train your mind. And I'm not talking about motivation on a poster or some inspirational soundbite. I'm talking about day after day, like a warrior preparing for war, like an athlete sharpening the edge, like someone who understands that the battle isn't out there, it's within, because emotion will come for you. It always does. It will wear the face of exhaustion, the weight of doubt, the pull of temptation, the sting of old wounds. You won't escape it, but you can be ready. You can train your mind to stand up tall and say, "Not today, I see you, I feel you, but you don't get to drive." And when that moment comes, and it will come, when the storm rolls in and your pulse quickens and your body gets heavy and the voice inside says, "Give up, this is too much," that's when you look emotion straight in the face and say, "You don't run me. I'm not here for comfort. I'm here for purpose. I'm on mission." Because this life isn't measured by how you feel when things are easy. It's measured by how you move when everything's falling apart. Anyone can smile in the sunshine, but it's the ones who show up in the storm, who stand tall in the rain, who plant their feet when the ground shakes. That's where champions are made. That's where legacy is born. Not in applause, not in ease, but in the moments no one sees. The moments when it's just you, your pain, and your decision. You don't win by being led by emotion. You don't win by letting every feeling shape your future. You don't win by chasing comfort or giving your impulses a seat at the table. You win when your mind becomes your general, when it stands guard over your choices, when you can pause in the middle of chaos and still hear that voice of clarity whisper, "Keep going." When your thoughts are stronger than your doubts, when your principles are firmer than your feelings, when your vision speaks louder than your cravings. You win when discipline becomes your armor, when you show up because you said you would, not because you feel like it. When you hit the gym, join the meeting, stick to the process, even when every part of you is begging for rest. You win when consistency rises above your excuses, when integrity becomes louder than emotion. That's how you walk through fire and don't get burned. That's how you survive the storm and keep building through the wind. You win when vision becomes your compass, when you stop making decisions based on how you feel and start making them based on where you're going. When your dreams pull you forward louder than the drama that tries to hold you back. When purpose becomes your pace setter. When the future you're chasing becomes more important than the past that tried to break you. That's when it all changes. Only then do you truly win. Not because you never cried, not because you never feared, but because when your heart grew heavy, your mind stayed firm. Because when the world tried to blur your vision, you held it steady. Because when comfort called, you still chose growth. And when relief was within reach, you still chose legacy. And that kind of victory, no one can take that from you. So wherever you are in your journey, whatever weight you're carrying, remember this. Your strength isn't in how loud you shout or how perfect you perform. It's in your quiet decisions, the ones no one sees. The ones you make when you're tired, hurt, unseen, but still choosing to rise. Let your mind lead. Let your purpose anchor you. Keep building, keep showing up, keep becoming. Because the life you want, the legacy you dream of, it's not built in moments of ease. It's built in the moments you refuse to quit. And you, right here, Right now, have everything it takes to finish strong.